In this series, we will be reading the lore text about the Age of Sigmar, the setting from the Soulbound RPG Corebook. This episode covers some of the organizations and factions of the mortal realms. Organizations and factions. To stand alone in the mortal realms is to fall. A simple truism that has been proven time and time again since the coming of Sigmar's storm. Few wander without a specific purpose or reasons tied to whatever group directed their traveling. While the forces of order may fight side by side on the battlefield, each faction has their own agenda. Common cause can take you far, but in the end, most look after their own interests first. When the mortal realms were trying to survive the onslaught of chaos, little thought was given to anything but survival. With the return of civilization comes the rise of various groups and organizations that are assisting with the rebuilding. Few do this through any sense of altruism, but rather to gain a foothold within what is being built. The daughters of Cain's practices make them abhorrent to many people, yet they are welcomed within Azerite cities because of their clear willingness to use their deadly skills against the forces of the dark gods. The Idonath Deepkin care little for those they save, but the promise of a bounty of souls, good or ill, are enough to side with Sigmar's forces. Thus, each group seeks to spread its influence and power throughout the new civilizations arising within the mortal realms. Each faction tries to present a united front to outsiders. It doesn't do for others to know that you are internally divided, as such divisions can be exploited. Nonetheless, divisions do arise. Members refuse to yield on what they believe is the best course of action, which leads to factions within factions. Such divisions are a cause of intrigue and political maneuvering, with power grabs being frequent and sometimes bloody. Collegiate Arcane. The Collegiate Arcane is a loose alliance of human sorcerers, wizards, mages, and seers. They reside in towers and palaces where they might conduct their studies away from the disruption of the mundane. Ostensibly academic in nature, the organization provides the mystically gifted a safe outlet for the proper exploration and exploitation of their magic. Alchemists, elementalists, and many others all find welcome within the floating towers of the Collegiate Arcane. The most skilled of these individuals craft wondrous artifacts of incalculable power, or assist the cities of Sigmar on the battlefield. Goals and ideals. Initially, the purpose of the Collegiate Arcane was the furtherance of magical knowledge, as well as the reclamation of the many semi-mystical technologies lost with the coming of chaos. But in recent years, their studies have increasingly turned towards battle magics and business of war. Nonetheless, the wizards remain, at heart, seekers of wisdom. They will go to great lengths to acquire ancient grimoires, forgotten technologies, and unusual artifacts, all in the name of preserving knowledge. Society and structure. The Collegiate Arcane are organized along rough academic lines, with each school of magic wielding a greater or lesser degree of influence at any given time, due to a variety of factors. For instance, in the cities of Gur, wizards of the Amber College are often paramount among their fellows for their mastery over beast magics. The struggle for position is a constant concern for collegiate mages, as loss of influence can spell disaster for a wizard's private studies, forcing them to grub for coin like a common sage. The ruling elite of the collegiate arcane is composed of a council of the most senior mages from across the realms, who have the authority to open up new avenues of study or shut them down, as well as hear petitions from those seeking their services, whether in battle or some other purpose. Members. The most commonly encountered members of the collegiate arcane are the battle mages, each of which tends to be dedicated to a particular facet of magic, but all are supremely skilled. Most are changed in noticeable ways by the magic they wield most frequently. The collegiate schools are filled with a wide variety of scholars and arcane wielders of lesser power. Tasks. The collegiate arcane seeks to uncover knowledge lost during the Age of Chaos. To that end, they often employ adventurers and mercenaries to search for ancient tomes and mystical artifacts on their behalf. The Bright College, in particular, has a growing interest in the alchemical technologies and sorcerous war constructs of the Aglaraxi, who controlled large portions of Akshi in their time. Numerous expeditions to the ruins that dot the searing landscape of the Great Parch have been funded in the hopes of recovering lost secrets. However, the collegiate treads carefully on the Great Parch for fear of drawing the attention of the wizards of Asperia. Darkling Covens. The Darkling Covens are matriarchal cults dedicated to the acquisition of power and influence, led by ruthless, powerful sorceresses who are masters of enchantment and enslaving the minds of others. The Darkling Covens have spread tendrils of their subtle control throughout the mortal realms. Wherever the forces of order are to be found, the sorceresses of the Darkling Covens will have some influence, or at least aspire to, within their ranks. When the Darkling Covens warriors march to war with their allies, they invariably strike to kill, for restraint in such matters is an alien concept to them. Goals and ideals. The Darklings do nothing without a purpose. All actions, decisions, and assistance is purely to further each of their interests. Ambition is all to the Darkling Covens, from their greatest sorceresses to their spy masters and warriors of the Black Guard. They believe that conscience is a weakness and kindness is foolhardy. Having lost their empires of old, the sorceresses that lead the Darkling Covens desperately crave widespread power once more. But their years of exile in Azir taught them the value of ruling from the shadows. Society and structure. The Darkling Covens gather into various orders and surround their true allegiances in secrecy. But in the end, each answers to a single mistress, a powerful sorceress who holds absolute power within her coven. The sorceresses that lead the Darkling Covens go by many different names and titles, but they are all incredibly powerful wielders of dark arcane arts, who will sacrifice their underlings without a second thought if it furthers their goals. Each sorceress tends to have a retinue of majordomos and generals to assist her with martial and other matters beneath her notice, all of which serve at her will. Other darklings are warriors that are each dedicated to a specific sorceress, with the sole exception of the forbidding warriors known as executioners, who answer to none. Members, the Darkling Coven, are exclusively Elven. They allow no beings they regard as lesser to ever claim to be part of their ranks. They mostly keep to themselves, interacting with others only when they must, or if they have something to gain. Their pawns, though, are legion, and can come from any culture, creed, species, and background. Tasks: the Darkling Covens trust none outside their ranks. Indeed, they seldom entirely trust their own fellows. But they make frequent use of others to carry out a wide variety of tasks for them, for the sake of misdirection, if nothing else. The sorceress's arcane control over their thralls is near absolute. There is frequently nothing they won't do if commanded to act. The thralls, however, often lack grace. When the sorceresses deem a task unsuitable for a thrall, they turn to other ways: favors, mercenaries, and blackmail. Daughters of Cain. The temples of the Daughters of Cain are basilicas of ritualized murder and blood sacrifice. They are forbidding places where blood has seeped into the very stones, where screams ring out the hours of day and night, where the grisly remnants of those that dared cross them hang from gibbets, their skulls leering from cages, or their cadavers artfully displayed upon spikes of the daughters' battlements. From humble beginnings in the Shadowlands of Ulgu, the Daughters of Cain have spread to become one of the most prominent organizations in the mortal realms. Almost every major city hosts at least one Cainite sect, and most will harbor several. Principal amongst these is Azirheim itself, home to representations of all the major Cainite sects, making it second only to their spiritual capital, Hagnar. Goals and ideals. To most, the Daughters of Cain are torturers and assassins, warrior women with a fanatical hatred of chaos, and on their frequent holy nights, purveyors of bloody entertainment. Every temple harbors a cauldron of blood, gifts from Cain, and the sect's most priceless relic. It is each coven's duty to keep their cauldron filled, and it is to this that their murderous activities are directed. Due to their miraculous properties, a cauldron of blood will never overflow, regardless of how blood is spilled, with the missing excess going to the nourishment of Cain, or some whisper to his self-appointed Oracle Morathi. Society and structure. Cainite society is strictly hierarchical. Power descends vertically from Morathi herself, with dozens of competing sects exist beneath her, promulgating a different aspect of Cain as the god of murder. The sword dancers of Caelbron, the executioners of Drychi Ganeth, the wandering killers of the Craith. Competition is rife, for such is the way of Cain. But so long as obedience to Hagnar remains absolute, then Morathi is content to overlook any such schemes. Members, the majority of the Daughters of Cain, are natural-born elves who are raised to the worship of Cain. Collectively, these elves are referred to as Covenant sisters, or simply daughters of Cain, and perform a variety of duties, including serving as gladiators, sword dancers, assassins, spies, and agents, as well as the witch elves commonly seen on the battlefield. Male members form a slave caste, known derogatively as Lethanom. They are bled in daily rituals and will often be sacrificed over the cauldron of blood when they cease to be useful. Tasks, the secretive and often grisly nature of the daughters of Cain means that they seldom welcome outside interest in their affairs. Even those adventurers that do win their trust are unlikely to be admitted into their temples and would probably not wish to. However, a hag queen will often find value in a neutral go-between in their dealings with rival sects or with the authorities of their host city. In the interests of diplomacy, Morathi expects her hag queens to restrain their bloodier impulses in Sigmar's domains. And when things do get out of hand, and they do, she expects examples and reparations to be made. A cunning hag queen may be willing to outsource such onerous responsibilities in exchange for the good favor of the temple or a fee, particularly if it removes a rival and leaves the hag queen free of any blame. Devoted of Sigmar. The devoted of Sigmar are guided by faith and fanaticism in equal measure. For centuries, Sigmar walked among humans, and countless cultures devoted themselves to his teachings, body and soul. They followed him in peace and in times of war against foes both mortal and immortal. When Sigmar was forced to abandon the realms to the depredations of chaos, many of his faithful followed him into exile, but others turned from his light. The prayers of the few remaining faithful outside of Azir went unheard for generations, until Sigmar's tempest swept across the mortal realms. Now, once again, the faithful war in the God King's name, purifying the realms with fire and iron. Goals and ideals, dedication to the God King and all his works is central to the Sigmarite faith. Though each follows the God King and seeks to ensure his triumph in their own ways. For some, this means peaceful teaching of the Sigmarite creed, which they seek to promulgate to every corner of existence. For most, this means conversion by the sword. Sigmar's blessed priests wield his gifts openly to shore up the faithful and strike down the God King's enemies, while in the shadows, the Order of Azir seeks out corruption and destroys heretics wherever they may be found. Society and structure, the Azirite Church, and the culture of Azir are near one and the same, both bastions of tradition and bureaucracy. Nominally led by the arch war priestess Asvi Stormright from her seat in Azirheim, lay priests oversee the day-to-day running of the church. However, some faithful throughout the realms follow their own cults or sects with their own dogma, which may differ from Azirite traditions. In strict contrast, members of the Order of Azir are said to answer to Sigmar alone, though in truth there is still much politicking even within the Order. While some agents of the Order hold themselves to a high ethical and moral standard. Others favor a more pragmatic outlook. Members, the devoted of Sigmar, come in as many different forms as there are denominations. From the disciplined warrior priests of the Ezirite Church and its offshoots to the crazed flagellants who thrash themselves with barbed whips, howling hymns and catechisms before hurling themselves into battle. Though some are bombastic orators, while others are austere manipulators, all are deadly. Tasks spreading the Sigmarite creed is the main concern of the devoted, though some are specifically dedicated to reclaiming sacred sites and holy relics lost during the Age of Chaos. Many will seek out agents of suitable faith and willingness to act on their behalf. Trusted agents might be employed to escort high-ranking church officials on secret errands, or even to commit acts of murder and sabotage on behalf of the faithful. The Order of Azir exists to destroy threats to Sigmar's faithful, and many employ extensive networks of agents from all walks of life and backgrounds in order to achieve their goals. Free peoples, the mortal realms, are home to a nearly infinite array of peoples and civilizations. Humans, Duardin and elves have all carved out a place for themselves in the wake of Sigmar's return. Azirite colonists pour into the lower realms to pursue wealth and adventure in newly taken territories, even as the human kingdoms of those self-same territories attempt to reassert their hard-fought independence. The Duardin clans of the dispossessed seek to retake and restore their ancestral holds, even as they help humanity build new cities to replace those lost to chaos. And the most enigmatic of all, the elves, whose purpose is as mysterious as their origins. Goals and ideals, the goals of the free peoples, are as varied as the peoples themselves. Azirite colonists seek to expand beyond the beachheads established by the Stormcast Eternals, creating opportunities for themselves in newly reclaimed territories. Merchants seek to re-establish ancient trading routes as new cities and townships are created on the bones of the old. Scribes and wizards attempt to gather the forgotten knowledge of the lost empires of the Age of Myth, even as Duardin mining concerns plumb the mineral wealth of the realms. The elves are wanderers and sages who seek to regenerate the lands beyond Azir by restoring ancient ley lines. Despite these disparate motivations, the free peoples are united in the face of their common foes, upholding the ideals of Sigmar, order and progress in the face of entropy and darkness. Society and structure. Thousands of different societies and cultures make up the free peoples. Azirite settlers populate the cities of Sigmar, mingling with the surviving human tribes that have found sanctuary within the city walls. The dispossessed clans have their own cultural practices, which diverge significantly, depending on the clan, while the Excelsis-based Grundrak clan hold to the traditional values of the Khazalid Empire. For instance, the Ghazul Zagas of southern Shaish are a dour, death-obsessed peoples. The elves are even more dissimilar, for they are a people fractured. Some are nomadic wanderers, while others seek solace in lives of monastic solitude. Others ply the seas, hunting great beasts or band together in warrior brotherhoods devoted to the eradication of chaos. Members, humans, Duardin and elves, come in many different forms. Every human tribe, kingdom, and city is different in culture and dress, usually speaking a regional variation of the Azerite tongue. While some commonalities exist, thanks to the increasing influence of Azir, there are still more differences than similarities. The elves are much the same, with the relative paucity of their population lending itself to greater differences among individuals. There are noble but fierce clans of nomadic wanderers, families of mystically attuned scholars, and monastic warrior conclaves, bound together by oaths as old as the realms themselves. In contrast to humans and elves, Duardin are, by and large, Duardin, wherever they choose to make their home. While a variety of minor cultural differences exist between dispossessed clans, they are often only noticeable to the Duardin themselves. Tasks. There are many opportunities to be found among human societies. Free guild regiments are always in need of fresh recruits, whether to fill out a battle line or patrol the streets of a city. Merchants are in need of guides. Sages require the help of adventurous souls to investigate forgotten temples and ruined cities. The dispossessed often employ mercenaries to explore the fallen holds of their ancestors or to recover the lost treasures of their clans. Certain elven families residing in Hammer Hall and Batar are said to hire sellswords and scholars to search for signs of their lost kin and ancestral roots in Hish and Ulgu. Fire slayers. Fire slayers are ferocious Duardin, infamous for their fiery tempers and lust for gold. Tenacious and volatile, they are renowned throughout the realms as mercenaries, ready to fight for whoever is willing to pay their price. Kings and warlords will gladly offer the wealth of entire kingdoms for the services of a single war-hardened lodge, a bargain most fire slayers are only too happy to accept. Such is their obsession with gold. But it is not simple greed which compels them. Rather, it is a desperate quest by the rune masters of the Fire Slayer lodges to locate the shattered auric fragments, known as Urgold, of the fallen Duardin god, Grimnir, so that he might be returned to walk among his descendants and worshippers once more. Goals and ideals. All fire slayers share a common goal: to locate and acquire the glimmering fragments of their god, wherever they might be found. Such has been their driving focus since Grimnir clashed with the god-beast, Volcatrix, and both were consumed in the ensuing conflagration. However, each lodge goes about this quest in their own way. Some seek to honor Grimnir in the traditional fashion by seeking out battle wherever it can be found and offering their services to one side or the other. Others are more patient and wait for potential employers to find them or offer protection to those willing to pay a tithe. Regardless, fire slayers, like all Duardin, approach such contracts as matters of honor. Once an oath is sworn, fire slayers will hold to it, whatever the consequences, and they expect the same of their clients. In the event of a broken oath or an unpaid debt, the wrath of the fire slayers will quickly fall upon those they once fought beside. Society and structure. Fire Slayer society is patrilineal in structure, as well as patriarchal. In most cases, only male fire slayers are permitted to bear the Urgold runes from which their warrior castes derive power or go into battle. Authority passes from the runefather to the chosen rune son, with the reigning patriarch of the founding family often leading a lodge from its inception. If a rune son refuses to accept the new runefather, they may split from the lodge to found their own. In rare cases, they may declare Baraz Akdum, the Doom Oath, and leave their home and lodge forever to find honor in glorious death. Thus are the traditions of the lodges preserved. Despite the patriarchal nature of their society, however, there have been rare instances of matrilineal inheritance among the smaller lodges, often occurring when the male population of a lodge is decimated due to war or disaster. Members, individual fire slayers, whether male or female, are considered muscle-bound maniacs, even by other Duardin. While females very rarely leave the safety of the lodge, males are encountered wherever there are battles to be fought and gold to be earned. Fire slayers are inured to extremes of temperature and environment. Clad in little more than armored kilts and heavy helms, they trust in the blazing runes of Urgold stamped into their flesh to protect them from harm. Tasks. While it is rare for fire slayers to trust those outside their lodge, they may require go-betweens to act on their behalf. Some lodges will hire outsiders to act as messengers should they be called to battle, or even to notify their lodge that they will soon die, and a rune smiter should be dispatched to reclaim their bodies. Other lodges utilize the skills of native scouts to guide them through unknown territory. Idonath Deepkin are a pathologically reclusive people, dwelling in sparsely populated enclaves at the bottom of the realm's oceans. Living in constant fear of the taint of Slaanesh in their souls, they seek out the dark, the cold, the obliteration of sensation. They are a horrifically flawed race. Only 1 in 100 are born with a soul that will survive past infancy, and only by mastering the sorcery to rip the spirit essence from another being and transplant it into their young have they managed to survive. Goals and ideals. The Idonath have no interest in the material concerns that motivate most races. The constant provision of fresh souls to satisfy their birth rate is the Deepkin's principal concern. But they will also go to extraordinary lengths to safeguard their isolation. Woe betide any foolhardy enough to rob from the Idonath, for there is no place in the mortal realms that will hide them from the wrath of the Deepkin. Though the forebears of the Idonath rejected the illumination of their maker, Teclis, all Deepkin nevertheless instinctively strive for enlightenment. They puzzle over matters of philosophy, and many are given over to silent introspection. The greatest minds among them still ponder the spiritual affliction of their species, and if there is not a better way to combat it than the course they have chosen so far. Society and structure. The Idoneth abhor each other's company almost as much as they do that of outsiders. Their societal structures are modeled on those taught to them by Teclis, and have been maintained as much to keep the Deepkin from their drift into solitude as for their cultural richness. An enclave is ruled by Achillean military commanders and Isharan priests. Achillean commanders call themselves king or queen, although it is not a hereditary title. The Idoneth enclaves tend toward meritocracy, as their bloodlines are often cut short due to soulless offspring. Trade between disparate enclaves is minimal. Non-violent contact with surface nations is rare, though slowly growing for few enclaves, especially those who have assisted Sigmar's forces. Members. Deepkin society is starkly divided between the half-souled Namarti and the true-souled elite. The Namarti are physically flawless, but the soul transference rituals they undergo as infants leave them blind and branded for life. They are the property of the noble houses and little more than slaves. The true-souled are divided according to their talents at a young age, separated from what family they might have to be schooled as Isharan sorcerer or Achillean warrior. Isharan and Achillean are the two halves of the Idoneth whole, and while there is always conflict between them, most enclaves prosper best under joint stewardship. Tasks. The Deepkin seldom deal with outsiders, but there are occasions when they are forced to turn outwards for assistance. Sometimes this will be to the Sylvaneth, who can be more predictable allies, or the Stormcast Eternals, whose reforged souls are of no value to them. However, elves seeking to deal with the Deepkin must be wary, for their souls are more valuable than nearly anything they could possibly offer. Some shallow water enclaves accept soul tithes in exchange for the protection of the Deepkin, in exchange for lore pertaining to the soul affliction or artifacts that belong to the sea. The Deepkin might be persuaded to part with a kingly portion of their vast, unwanted wealth. Furthermore, enclaves which feel themselves threatened may find a use for informants to be their eyes in the surface world. Caradron overlords. The Caradron are a breed of Duardin who used their engineering expertise to take to the skies of the mortal realms. They gird themselves in advanced armor and employ a variety of sophisticated weaponry to maintain their trade routes. Their technological innovations have resulted in a wide range of skyfaring ships they employ for both exploration and commerce, always seeking new markets to increase their profits. The Caradron are especially alert for the precious ether gold, which powers many of their esoteric inventions, and is the fuel that keeps their skyships aloft. Goals and ideals. The Caradron as a whole are focused upon profit. Advancement within their society is based almost entirely upon merit. The more successful a Caradron is, the more valuable they are regarded by their peers, and the greater their status within their skyports. Caradron are pragmatic when it comes to their dealings with others. A valuable trading partner will will be protected by an allied skyport, while a less important one will be left to fend for themselves. Commercial interests are ultimately the focus of Caradron expeditions, whether the mission is one of exploration or war. Society and structure. During the Age of Chaos, when the armies of chaos ravaged much of Chaman, some Duarden used their engineering to escape into the skies. Constructing floating outposts in the clouds, these Duarden became the Caradron. Over time, these outposts expanded into vast skyports, massive cities suspended far above the earth. Smaller skyships sailed from these strongholds to ride the wind currents, ever on the hunt for ethergold, the vaporous element which powers Caradron technology. Without ethergold, no skyship could stay aloft, and even the skyports would crash to the ground. To give structure to their society and prevent costly infighting among the skyports, the Caradron Code was created. These are a series of rules and strictures that quantify how commerce should be conducted, when to engage foes, the proper procedures for laying claim to an ethergold vein, and many other areas of potential dispute. The Caradron will adhere to the articles of the code, though they often find room for interpretation. Members. Each Caradron skyport has its own Admiral's Council, which is answerable to the Geldrad, formed by members of the 6 wealthiest skyports. The skyport with the most capital has the most seats, which means the steering hand of the council can always look out for what is best for their skyport, all within the code of course. Beneath the Admiral's councils are the guilds. Among the skyfarers who venture across the mortal realms, the Nav League, Engineers Guild, and Ethochemists Guild are the most common. The bulk of the crews and commissioned officers come from the Archanaut training academies, as well as independent contractors such as the Grunstock Corporation. The character of a Caradron is often influenced by the skyport they hail from. Those of Barak Thring are strict traditionalists and adhere to the letter of the code, while those of Barak Mornar are renowned for shock assaults and creative interpretations of the code. Tasks. Caradron are explorers and merchants, always seeking new resources to claim or new markets to open. They are open to dealing with anyone who promises to bring them a prosperous venture, though some will be more scrupulous about whom they make agreements with than others. They are a very skilled people with exacting quality in everything they make. Caradron continually hone their craft, seeking to improve upon what has come before, and thereby increase their own prestige and status. Scourge Privateers. The Scourge Privateers are Elven corsairs, often employed by the ruling conclaves of port cities, such as Anvilgard and Excelsis. Once pirates and reavers, they now turn their murderous talents to hunting the monstrous beasts that haunt the seas, as well as enemy fleets. Such is the Aelv's skill on the open sea, that there are few of the latter that dare approach the cities of Sigmar, save perhaps the junk fleets of Orruk freebooters. Ruthless and utterly mercenary in their outlook, the Scourge Privateers often engage in skullduggery to supplement their pay, hiring themselves out to anyone with the coin to pay them, and the willingness to put up with their often vitriolic senses of humor. Goals and ideals. The Scourge privateers are motivated by profit and a love of adventure. For some fleet masters, that equates to cash on the barrelhead in the form of bounties on monsters and unlicensed privateers. For others, profit comes in less tangible forms: influence, favors owed, and immunity from the laws of the land. But always, it is their driving goal, and they will go to any lengths to acquire it. While many are currently employed by the conclaves of Sigmar cities, some Scourge privateers, even few of those under contract, continue to live as pirates, preying on shipping and isolated coastal towns and cities. Society and structure. The lives of the Scourge privateers are centered on their ships. Their black arcs are immense floating fortress cities built on the shells and hides of monstrous oceanic behemoths. These ships are fiefdoms, run by autocratic fleet masters who maintain their authority by skill at arms and cunning. The hierarchy of the crew is often determined by violence or politicking, or even games of chance, depending on the ship and the crew. For a Scourge privateer, their ship is the whole of their world. However, a few are almost as at home on land as they are on the water. These corsairs are often chosen as huntsmen by their fleet masters and sent to track rare beasts or spy on the captains of rival vessels. Members. Scourge privateers are rarely encountered on land, save in harbor towns or port cities. They are more at home on the water than on shore, and rarely stray far from the sea. They are hardened fighters who have spent their life plundering ships and slaughtering their foes. The average corsair will be a battle-scarred veteran of 1,000 boarding actions and hunts, armed with a plethora of blades and killing implements. Most are skilled at swordplay, the equal of any warrior on land, and a dead aim with a repeater handbow or a pistol. Tasks. Many Scourge privateers fill their coffers by hunting sea and land monsters. Some of these beasts are more valuable alive than dead, are sold on to the collegiate arcane for study, or to the owners of gladiatorial arenas and fighting pits. Others are slaughtered, and their organs and bile harvested on behalf of medical and alchemical guilds or other, more esoteric, groups. In many of these cases, the Scourge privateers often leave the tedious business of offloading and transporting such goods to others. Such tasks often prove dangerous, especially when the beast is bound for the fighting pits. Stormcast Eternals. The Stormcast Eternals are Sigmar's vengeance made manifest, and his final gambit against the forces of chaos. Stronger, faster, and more resilient than any mortal, each Stormcast is a veritable demigod compared to the humans they once were. Girded in armor of arcane manufacture, and carrying weapons infused with the fury of the storm, a single Stormcast is an army unto themselves. But the divine magics which empower them do not come without cost. The peace of death is denied them, in all save the most extreme circumstances. At the moment a killing blow lands, a fallen stormcast is rent asunder by the magics within them and returned to Azir, where an arduous and imperfect process begins. The broken soul is reforged time and again, altered in mind and body with each successive death. Goals and ideals. The Stormcast Eternals were created to destroy chaos in all its forms. Open war is the most common method of accomplishing this goal. But chaos has more than just armies of bloody-handed reavers at its disposal. Insidious cults, demonic manipulators, mystic plagues, all of these things the Stormcast Eternals must be prepared to face, both on the battlefield and off. Each storm host approaches this holy task differently. Some strike with subtlety, weaving intricate strategies to lure their foes into the open, while others march to war with bellicose vigor or ruthless pragmatism. Society and structure. The storm host is the foundation upon which every Stormcast Eternal anchors themselves. It is their guiding ethos and identity, providing them with a brotherhood of like-minded individuals, as well as functioning as a rigidly structured military organization. Each storm host is broken down into a variety of chambers, each pertaining to a different method of war. Each chamber is then divided into conclaves and finally retinues. Command echelons are formed of various lords and knights, the champions of a particular chamber. Chambers can function in isolation for the duration of a campaign, but are often supported by other chambers or by mortal auxiliaries from the Free Guild regiments or the Iron Weld. Members. Each Stormcast was once a mortal man or woman. Some were of noble birth, while others grew to adulthood amid desperate squalor or savage surroundings. But all came to the notice of Sigmar in some fashion, and were plucked from the moment of their demise to be reforged into one of the God King's chosen warriors. While there are obvious commonalities between the members of each storm host, individual stormcasts can come from a wide variety of backgrounds and cultures, and this is often reflected in their personalities. Those stormcasts who were drawn from the primitive tribes of Gur and Akshi, for instance, are often bawdy and crude, while those drawn from the noble bloodlines of Hish place a strong emphasis on personal decorum and firm but even-handed rulership. Tasks. There are few things a Stormcast Eternal cannot accomplish on the battlefield. Off it, however, they often require the aid of mortals. For instance, the Lord Celestant of a warrior chamber might employ mortal agents to find lost realm gates or other sites of military interest, while a Lord Arcanum might forge a network of explorers, sages, and scholars to seek out certain sorcerous artifacts or mystic tomes. Mortal auxiliaries are often used by Lord Veritans to investigate the activities of cults and suspicious individuals, as they can go unnoticed where a Stormcast Eternal could not. Sylvaneth. The Sylvaneth are the children of Alariel, spirits shaped from the life magic of Giron. Cultivated in the soulpod groves of each Sylvaneth enclave, the spirit is carefully nurtured, until it is ready to enter the physical body that has been prepared for it. Grown from the wildwood, the size and shape of a sylvaneth is fashioned to suit its purpose. The forest folk, such as dryads and branch wraiths, are those who tend and nurture the forests and wilds. The noble spirits are those who defend the forests. The great tree lords, branch witches, and tree revenants are among these protectors. The free spirits are those who have been grown to act as instruments of Alariel's will, such as the Kurnoth hunters and arch revenants. Outcasts are sylvaneth who have descended into madness and can now hear only the song of war spite revenants and their ilk. Goals and ideals. Sylvaneth are not motivated by such personal pursuits such as wealth and power. They are the stewards of the natural order, and it is towards this role that their enclaves have spread from Giron to the other mortal realms. They defend the forests and wild places under their protection with uncompromising vigilance, while the Sylvaneth do make a distinction between the taint of chaos, which can irrevocably blight a place, and the activities of less pernicious outsiders. All who menace the lands under their guard are met with hostility. To the Sylvaneth, an auroch warband burning trees out of sheer malice and human loggers collecting timber to build their homes are both enemies. Society and structure. The spirit song is the great binding force that connects all Sylvaneth. This harmony has its source in Alariel, the goddess of life. From Giron, the spirit song vibrates out into all the realms. As much shaped from the goddess emotions and intentions as quantified by anything resembling words, the spirit song grows stronger and more vibrant wherever large numbers of Sylvaneth are gathered. In time of distress, the melody takes on a violent and bloody quality, becoming the song of war, rousing the Sylvaneth to battle. Each Sylvaneth adds their own notes to the spirit song's melody, which allows them to communicate across vast distances, and none but they can truly understand it. Indeed, non-Sylvaneth that can hear it often suffer intense pain when exposed to the spirit song and can be driven mad by it. Members. At the core of the Sylvaneth is the goddess Alariel and her royal moot. The royal moot is composed of the leaders of the glades from across the realms, as well as other unique dignitaries. Each glade is a vast extended family or lineage that has, over time, come to develop its own characteristics and tendencies. The Sylvaneth of Oakenbrow, for instance, are lofty and regal, and more open to contact with other races. Those of Dreadwood are spiteful and merciless, with little tolerance for outsiders. Tasks. While deeply aware of their own defined roles within their enclaves, Sylvaneth often have difficulty understanding the ways of outsiders. This can lead to them seeking the assistance of others when a problem arises that does not have a clear resolution in the spirit song. Some glades are more open to associating with non-Sylvaneth. Noble and free spirits tend to be better adjusted to meeting with quick bloods than others are. Other factions. Dispossessed. The Duardin of the dispossessed are the remnants of proud empires that were shattered during the Age of Chaos. Their hands have crafted many of the sturdiest of the God King's walls, and it is often their axes that defend them. Led to war by their warden kings, the dispossessed seek out the mightiest foes to test themselves against. Free Guild. Even in a world where wars are waged by lightning-forged immortals, there is a place for the common folk wishing to protect their home. The warriors of the Free Guilds bravely steel themselves against the onslaught of monstrous and demonic forces that plague the realms. The Free Guilds serve as the standing army and de facto police force of the cities of Sigmar. Ironweld Arsenal. The engineers of the Ironweld Arsenal are masters of strange cogwork war machines and devastating black powder weapons. Made up of a conglomeration of humans and Duardin, the weaponsmiths of the Ironweld Arsenal are responsible for some of the most bizarre and deadly war machines of the God King's armies. Seraphim. The Seraphim are mysterious reptilian creatures born of the heavens, said to be both savage and wise. Since the coming of Sigmar's tempest, whole Seraphim temple cities have seemingly appeared out of nowhere in places where powerful mystical energies converge. Some cities of Sigmar now house an enclave of Seraphim, where their clever skinks offer their services as scribes, able crafters, and skilled readers of mystical portents. Wanderers. The nomadic elves, most commonly referred to as the Wanderers, are the remnants of the fallen elven kingdoms of Giron. When the Age of Chaos fell upon the mortal realms, they fought valiantly. But in the end, they fled Giron to take refuge within Azir. Since the coming of Sigmar's tempest, they have returned to fight for the realm's wild places once more. Thank you for listening. I hope you enjoyed this audio journey into the world of the Age of Sigmar. In our next episode, we will begin the religion and belief chapter.